All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are taking a really fascinating architectural tour. We're going to see how to force two massive competing email platforms to seamlessly share a single domain. Specifically, we'll be looking at starsourcingltd.com, and we're going to break down exactly how to unite Google Workspace and Microsoft 365 in a dual delivery mail configuration. Honestly, if you've ever wondered how to make these two tech giants actually play nicely together for one organization, you are in the exact right place.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the split delivery architecture overview. Then we'll configure the Google Workspace gateway, followed by setting up the Microsoft 365 destination. After that, we'll perfect our DNS and deliverability, and finally, wrap things up with troubleshooting and some known limitations.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, Split Delivery Architecture Overview. How exactly do we merge two clouds? To really wrap our heads around this setup, I want you to visualize these two massive digital email systems as a physical mailroom sorting facility. What is split delivery, practically speaking? Well, it's a routing model where Google Workspace acts as the primary mail gateway. It catches all the mail and then uses a specific rule to basically push certain users' mail over to Microsoft 365. So think of Google Workspace as the main entrance, right? It's the primary sorter for all incoming traffic. Every single piece of mail from the outside world hits that front door first. Google looks at the envelope and goes, does this stay here, or do I need to push this over to the Microsoft building?
So on one side, we have our primary host, Google Workspace. It handles the main MX records, which basically means the public internet knows to send all mail there first, and it does all that vital initial sorting. And on the other side, we have our secondary host, Microsoft 365. It's acting simply as a designated destination. Think of it like an annex for those routed users. It is definitely not greeting the mail carriers at the front door. It's literally just waiting for Google to securely cart certain parcels over to its loading dock.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, the Google Workspace Gateway. Let's talk about directing that traffic. Now we actually get to pop open the Google Admin Console and see how the system makes that crucial decision, what stays in Gmail and what gets loaded onto the trucks for Microsoft. To make this work, there are two absolutely critical steps. Step 1 is defining the host. We have to tell Google exactly where to send the forwarded mail, so we point it to starsourcingltd.com.mail.protection.outlook.com on port 25. And, this is key, we require TLS. We need a CA signed certificate to make sure that connection between Google and Microsoft is locked down and secure. We definitely don't want anyone intercepting our mailroom trucks. Then, step 2 is creating the actual routing rule. We set up a filter that scans inbound and internal envelopes to see if they match our precise criteria for routing.
And what exactly is that criteria? Well, it all hinges on one very specific email address, o365users@starsourcingltd.com. This Google group acts as the ultimate floor supervisor for our mailroom. Any user you add to this group automatically triggers the entire diversion logic. Google checks the incoming mail against this VIP list, and if the recipient is on it, boom, that mail is getting diverted.
The really crucial part is what happens when it finds a match. The triggered action is modify message, then change route, and point it directly to Office 365. This is the literal, physical action of rerouting the message. The system says, okay, this person is in the O365-users group. Take this message, cancel its trip to the local Gmail inbox, and push it straight down that secure tunnel we built over to Microsoft 365. That right there is the engine powering the whole Google Workspace gateway. Which brings us to Section 3, the Microsoft 365 destination. Time to open up the annex. So we've successfully pushed the mail out of Google. Awesome. But now we have to make sure Microsoft is actually willing to accept it when it shows up. And that leads to a massive potential roadblock. How do we stop Microsoft from bouncing forwarded emails if it doesn't recognize a user locally? Because if mail arrives for someone who isn't natively hosted in Microsoft 365, Exchange's default reflex is to just reject it. It says, I have no idea who this is, throws it in the digital trash, and bounces it right back to the sender. And obviously, in an enterprise environment, we absolutely cannot afford to have dropped messages. Now, what's really interesting about this fix is that the absolute secret weapon is just a simple setting in the Exchange Admin Center. We have to set the accepted domain type to internal relay. This is the magic toggle, folks. By default, domains are set to authoritative, which means Microsoft thinks it is the one and only game in town for that domain. Flipping it to internal relay tells Microsoft, hey, listen, you share this address space. If you don't find the user locally, chill out, don't panic, and definitely don't bounce the mail. It's perfectly fine.
But beyond that domain setting, there are some pretty strict entry requirements for the users themselves. To successfully sit on the Office 365 platform and get this routed mail, every single user needs two things. First, an active Microsoft 365 license. You got to pay the toll to play on the platform. And second, their primary SMTP address in Microsoft must perfectly match their Google address. If Google routes an email for john@starsourcingltd.com, that Microsoft inbox has to be explicitly configured as john@starsourcingltd.com. Literally, no typos are allowed here, or the delivery is going to fail for sure.
All right, Section 4, Perfecting DNS and Deliverability. Let's talk about our security guard. Now that our internal routing plumbing is working flawlessly, we have to secure the external perimeter so our mail doesn't get flagged to spam by the rest of the world. We do this by updating the SPF record. It's just a simple text file in our DNS, but it acts as our ultimate VIP security list. Let's deconstruct it piece by piece. We start with v equals SPF1, just to identify the SPF version. Then we authorize a specific Office IP with IP4.163.53.180.201. Now, here is the absolute critical part for dual delivery. We literally have to invite both platforms to the party. We use include_spf.google.com to authorize Google Workspace, and we also have to add include_spf.protection.outlook.com to authorize Microsoft 365. Finally, that shiv all at the end specifies a soft fail for any unlisted IPs. By combining both platforms into this one comprehensive record, we guarantee that the rest of the internet actually trusts emails coming from either side of our shared domain.
Which takes us to our final part, Section 5, Troubleshooting and Known Limitations. This is your real-world maintenance guide.
Look, even the best designed architectures need a little maintenance, so keep these fixes in your back pocket as your ultimate IT survival guide. If mail is bouncing when sent to M365 users, it almost always means your domain and Microsoft is still set to authoritative. Just jump in and flip it to internal relay. What if your sent mail is landing in the spam folder? You probably forgot to add that Microsoft include statement to your SPF record. And if you find that mail meant for Microsoft is just sitting there stuck in a Gmail inbox, well, it's usually just simple human error. You likely forgot to add that user to your O365 users Google group. Add them in, and the routing rule will instantly take over.
Before we wrap up entirely, let's quickly fire off a few known system limitations so you don't get caught out by these gotchas. First up, calendar interrupt, which means seeing free/busy lookups between Google Calendar and Outlook, is not active by default. You're going to need some extra configuration to get those two talking. Second, offboarding is a strict two-step dance. If you remove a user from Office 365, you absolutely must remember to also remove them from that O365 users Google group. If you don't, their mail just routes into a total dead zone. And lastly, just remember that any SPF DNS changes you make take about 1 to 4 hours to propagate globally. You gotta factor that waiting time in.
So we did it. We've successfully forced two massive competing platforms to share a single address space, ensuring smooth delivery, tight security, and absolutely no dropped messages. It's a pretty elegant solution when you step back and look at it. So I want to leave you with this provocative question. With Google and Microsoft successfully sharing a domain, what other complex legacy architectures could you confidently simplify next? Because the underlying logic of routing, relaying, and secure handoffs, that applies everywhere in tech. Keep exploring, keep simplifying, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. See you next time.